From Cali to Tally, it's time to wake up. WarChant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source, and this is Wake Up War Chant. Now here's WarChant.com's Aslan Hudjavandi and Corey Clark.
Where the downwards go, go. Where the downwards go, yeah, not wanna go.
Wake up! What up, everybody? Let's do this. Showtime. 2 more weeks left in the season. I'm not excited because of that, Corey. I'm going to miss it. I think I'm going to miss it, but it is what it is, right? It is. There's 2 weeks left and a few more of these morning practices left in the books. We went to one of them yesterday. We'll talk about it here shortly. But first, your well-being, Corey. How would you assess it right now?
Not terrible. Doing all right. Living life. Breathing this wonderful air we have on the third rock from the sun we call the earth. Feel grateful that I'm alive. Kind of honestly, and I don't want to get too far. I don't want to make this X-rated or anything.
Do it.
But feel pretty, really grateful that I was the sperm that snuck in there.
Yeah.
Out of all the sperm that was, what would we thrust?
Vying.
Shot.
Well,
I don't know what verb to use there.
I
was the one that made the egg. The egg.
Yeah, let's not use a verb.
Okay, sorry with the verbiage. That was probably a mistake. But when you think about life like that, aren't we all just? I mean, it's all 1,000,000 to 1 shot that we're here. So let's, YOLO.
Yeah.
YOLO, man. I got to cover a national championship team just 5 years ago. I could deal with what we're dealing with right now.
Okay. All right. Cool. That was a lot. That was deep. I like it though, Corey. Good stuff.
Doing what I can, buddy. Doing what I can.
So I was driving back from the gym, and I had it on 97.9 ESPN, Seminole Headlines, and I think it was hour number 2. And you guys had come back from commercial break, and you were saying something about the fact that of all the problems, or maybe not problems, but of all the personnel, perhaps inadequacies of this roster, the one where there might be some of the least amount of disparity between player 1 and player 2 is quarterback, but you guys spent 25 minutes talking about the quarterbacks again. What do you guys talk about? Is there something new that you unearthed over there?
No, just Ira's saying that it would make no sense to redshirt. It would make no sense to play Blackman these last 4 games, even if you thought he was going to be the starter in 19. And my response being, well, no, I think experience matters. I think if you think he's going to be the starter in 19, it would make sense to play him. Ira's like, well, you can't judge anyone behind this offensive line. And it just kind of went on. And we all agree, again, that the biggest mistake, really the only mistake, because, again, nobody on either side of, even if you have a side in this debate, thinks that one is appreciably better than the other or that it would really matter.
Cameron disagrees.
I think he thinks that too. I don't think he thinks the record would be any different. He certainly doesn't think Notre Dame would have been any different. But if you really were going to redshirt this kid, the mistake that was made, and it's just kind of it's a lack of foresight, non-planning mistake that seems like it's kind of been made a lot this year, is there's no reason for him to play 8 snaps versus Clemson and forced meaningless snaps against Wake Forest if you were going to redshirt him. Because now you're in a point where, man, what if Florida State is down 13-7 in the 4th quarter against Florida, and Francois turns his ankle and can't go? You're going to burn Norm. James Blackman's red shirt.
Go to Norm. Bring in Norm.
Bring in Norm, baby. You bring in Nolan McDonald, or are you going to burn James Blackman's red shirt for that one game? Like if he hadn't played at all against Wake and Clemson, which he shouldn't have, then he could play these last 2 games with no worry about what it would mean to his eligibility in 2021. So that was kind of the discussion. It's just, and I agreed with that. Like that was a mistake. That was a misstep. His thought process.
Mistake. That's a gross mistake, isn't it? I mean, it's a gross mistake, Corey. What you just pointed out. How can you want to preserve his red shirt and you have a limited amount of times to use him and then use him in those situations? There's got to be something else.
The only thing that we could come up with is that it wasn't something that was agreed upon earlier in the season. Quite obviously, it was something that kind of maybe Blackman went to him middle of the season and said, "Hey, could you do this for me?" If
that's ridiculous. That's preposterous.
No. Again, I don't mind that. I don't mind. Just like I wouldn't have minded Dabo telling Kelly Bryant, "Man, yeah, okay, fine. We'll let you. I won't play you in a blowout, but if we need you, we're going to need you." I have no problem with Willie Taggart making an agreement like that with James Blackman. I don't think anybody would. I mean, the kid has why waste a redshirt year for one quarter against Florida? But again, that was made too late in the game. If that was really determined, that was made too late in the game because obviously, if they were planning on redshirting James Blackman in early October, there's zero chance he plays that Wake Forest series. So again, it's. And we don't even know that that's the truth. It literally might be that Willie Taggart thinks DeAndre Francois is the best player. I mean, there's nothing that says that's not the case either.
He does, which is bizarre. Because what I was thinking is, obviously, whatever, DeAndre won the job fair and square, what have you. But the way James looked in the NC State game, he looked pretty crisp. And I know that's not a good secondary or even a adequate secondary in some of the metrics. But, what did James Blackman do between July and October, whatever that date was, or November, whatever the date was of the NC State game, to look that good? He must have made some huge strides because I don't know, it just seems like if Blackman was playing the way he played against NC State in practices, why wouldn't he have been inserted into this lineup much earlier into the game? I guess maybe it's Willie didn't believe that DeAndre was a problem, but man, the boat's sinking, man. Grab a different oar. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's bizarre.
I think the thinking must be if you think everything is equal, and I do think Willie thinks that, or actually I don't. I think Willie thinks that 12 is a better player. Then just to change it up, maybe you don't need to I don't know, use the kid's eligibility for games that don't matter. But again, these games do matter. I don't think that Willie Taggart would forsake the bowl streak per James Blackman's red shirt. That would be a fireable offense, in my opinion. I don't think he's forsaking anything, though, because I don't think anybody thinks that James Blackman is worlds better than DeAndre Francois. Yeah, he had a really nice game against NC State, and you can't take that away from him. It was the best game of his career. And in fact, when you go back to the last 4 games he played in 17, that's 5 pretty solid games in a row for that kid. But the Wake Forest backup lit up NC State secondary, drove them right down the field in the last 80 yards to win that game on Thursday night. NC State secondary is really bad. So nobody's arguing that James Blackman would have beaten Notre Dame. I think
Not
he throws it
all.
up
Yeah.
to Terry Moore, but what are you going to do? But again, my point, and we're doing it again, is it when it comes to this team, who cares? This team has so many other fires that need putting out. That's what I was lamenting, is that we spent half of the first hour talking about the quarterback, well, really just talking about the mistake when it comes to how they handle Blackman and again with Wake Forest and Clemson. But then in the reality, in the grand scheme of things, it really doesn't matter for this season, and I have a hard time thinking it's going to matter for the 2021 season.
Well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I want to not turn my back and just pull a guy down and get pass interference. It doesn't matter if I put the ball on the ground because I know I'm not going to get benched. It doesn't matter if I don't know where to line up as a wide receiver because look what's going on at the quarterback position. Guys missing players week 11, week 12 of the season, just overshooting guys left and right.
Oh, no, but you're arguing that you think James Blackman is a lot better than Francois. I don't think you think that. I mean, I think Francois didn't play well in South Bend, but
man,
but
my mind wanders. I don't know.
Blackman would have either.
I don't know, but my mind wanders and believes, like, good grief, man. If James Blackman started week 1, what would he look like right now? Because he looked a lot better against Florida than he did against NC State last year. And those teams were comparable. I know one went to a bowl, the other did not. But come on, NC State wasn't. They had a really great pass rusher in Bradley Chubb, jerk, spitting on our logo, jerk. But I mean, he grew. You saw that kid grow, and I mean, good grief, nothing. DeAndre has not gotten better. He hasn't. I mean, you talked about he rolled out a little bit more against Notre Dame. He hasn't gotten any better, in my opinion, at all this season. He is what he is.
No, I agree with you. And my thinking on it is, I don't know that you can roll with Francois in 2019, but that's my opinion. Yeah. Willie Taggart might have a different opinion. In fact, there's nothing that tells us he doesn't. So if he thinks the 2019 offense will be better with DeAndre Francois at quarterback, then
why?
Oh, but that's his job. He gets paid to make those decisions. I don't know if that's the case, but if he thinks that Francois gives them the best chance to win, my thought was, if you think Blackman's going to be your quarterback in 19 or has a really legitimate shot at it, I would have let him play the last 4 games of the season to see what he could do.
Yeah, absolutely.
To give him some momentum going into 2019. Ira's thought was, why burn a red shirt for 4 games that don't matter? I disagreed with that, especially because it could be 5 games that do matter, and I do think that experience matters. I think experience, even behind an inept offensive line, matters when you're trying to learn a system. Playing under the lights matters. It just matters. And so I do think that, playing at Notre Dame, playing BC, playing Florida that experience could certainly help, probably wouldn't hurt James Blackman. But again, this is all speculation. We don't know where Willie Taggart truly stands on this quarterback. I'd love to talk to him off the record about and it would be off the record, so I couldn't share it. But what was his thought process going in, and what does he think about 2019? Which one of these kids is going to redshirt, or which one of these kids is going to transfer?
Yeah,
it's an interesting deal, man. Because I'm still of the opinion that if you don't have a quarterback that can move, this thing ain't going to work. And I don't mean, again, he doesn't have to be Michael Vick or Manziel or even
Bledsoe.
Baker Mayfield, but you have to be able to wiggle and you have to make plays with your feet. You have to. And one guy doesn't do it at all. The other guy barely does it, but he does it a little bit better. So hopefully Sam Howell is who the next Quentin Flowers.
I just hope that Ira's daughter, Alexa, buds into a basketball superstar and then has a redshirt dilemma her sophomore year, and then we'll see what Ira really wants his redshirt. Ira really values the redshirt for James Blackman, and the rest of us don't, and he just absolutely can't wrap his head around why like you or Jeff or myself are like, just play the kid already. Like what's awaits around the bend for him in 2021, and he talks about how valuable it is to sit a year.
And I made my point that if you're gonna forsake your program, and again, that's a very hard statement because I don't say he's doing that. But if you think that you're going to forsake the best interest of your program and your team in 2018 for James Blackman in 2021, it's probably not going to be your program in 2021.
Yeah,
if you're willing to make decisions like that, that's my opinion. But again, that's under the impression that we think that Willie wants to play Blackman but isn't. I think Willie's playing the guy he wants to play. I truly think that if Willie thought James Blackman was going to be the quarterback in 2019, and if he thought he was the best quarterback on this team, he would have played him this Saturday and he would play in the next 2 games.
Last word I want to get on this. I mean, ultimately, it has to come down to his mobility. I think for a long time we were talking about it's the offensive line. I know he had Dalvin Cook in 16. I was going to kind of say that DeAndre's the guy who needs everything around him to function perfectly for him to perform really well, which isn't a slight. I mean, a lot of guys need everything to work out. They can't operate when they don't know how consistent their pocket's going to be and things like that. But I mean, good grief, like that 2016 line wasn't amazing. He did have Dalvin, and good grief, he did have Dalvin. But he hasn't looked anywhere near as effective this year as he did in 16 in a much more complicated offense as, again, just a redshirt freshman. It wasn't like he was a junior in 16 or anything like that. He was a redshirt freshman, his first year starting in a complicated offense with still a mediocre offensive line. I don't know how many guys.
But again, mediocre. What would we give to have a mediocre offensive line to cover this year?
How much more? I don't know how much. I really don't know how much more different it really would be, man. I really don't.
No, I'm saying maybe not, but I think comparing this offensive line to that offensive line, and we all know that the offensive line in 16 wasn't very good, but it was worlds better than this thing. I mean,
was it though?
I mean, you've got Jawan Williams, you've got a defensive tackle, you've got Eberle, and then you've got Cole Minshew's not playing anymore, and then you've got another tackle you had a backup center playing tackle for half the season. It has been a mess. And I do think there's validation in that. You can't. It's so hard to judge this thing because it's so bad. I mean, really, literally, I think if we went in the PFF, Florida State would probably have 8 of the 15 worst offensive linemen in the conference on their team as far as grades. It's an abomination. So. You hope it gets better. You hope they take the coaching, and you hope you get better players in here. But again, I don't think we should dismiss how much better the offensive line in 2016 was And that offensive line wasn't any good. So that's kind of how sad the state of affairs is in 2018. Hey, can I read something to you that I just tweeted? Well, when people are listening to this, I tweeted it hours ago. But
blowing our cover.
so some people might have already seen it. But okay, so tell people again how many FBS teams there are in the country, Aslan.
129?
Correct. So listen to this. There are 129. FSU ranks 119th in turnover margin, 124th in red zone offense, 127th in rushing offense, 128th in yards per carry, in third down conversions, in tackles for loss allowed, and in penalties. They are second to last in the entire country in 4 separate categories.
It has to be a confluence, Corey. It has to be a confluence. It can't just be one thing. You
Well,
can't
a
be
lot
that
of
bad
that
and all
comes
that
down to
because of
one thing. You know, when you're talking about rushing offense, yards per carry, tackles for loss allowed, red zone offense, man, again, we can't not point at the 5 guys up front that can't block anyone. That plays a huge role in all that. It just goes to show you what a kind of atrocity we've been watching. And quite frankly, somebody tweeted this at me, and it's true. When you look at those numbers, it's a miracle they're not 1-9. I mean, it's like if Kent State wasn't a football team, Florida State would be dead last in 3 different categories. Florida State. And I don't think you could actively coach to make Florida State bad and they end up this bad. You know what I mean? Like if this was, say, a top 20 caliber offense, I don't think you and I could put together a game plan that would make them 128th. It's an abomination. It's incredible. It is literally like, maybe, we'll see what they do. Imagine numbers like this and they still somehow miracle themselves into a bowl. I mean, that's a legitimate possibility. It's not a probability, but it's a possibility, right? They could beat BC in Florida. Imagine finishing second to last in 4 or 5 different categories and making a bowl. I'm telling you, folks, I might vote Taggart Coach of the Year. You
over the
kidding
Twitter
me?
machine.
Well,
Yeah, I'm done. I'm done with this quarterback stuff.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. So when we talk about the quarterback, it's like, man, look, there are so much bigger problems.
Actually,
They
I'm not
are
done with the
awful
quarterback.
everywhere.
I'm over the offensive line stuff. I mean, I'm just over the offensive line stuff.
We're over talking about it. It's
Yeah.
not that is it an excuse or an explanation?
It's an excuse.
Or an
both.
excusination.
You can't keep looking this bad 11 weeks, 12 weeks into a season. You can't. There has to be reasons beyond just the 5 guys that just keep not playing well enough. You have to figure out ways.
Are you really this mad, Aslan? Come on, buddy. Come on. I know you're doing it for the cause. You're doing it for the folks that listen because they want to know that the guy cares. But come on, you know what this deal is.
Mike on Twitter tweeted at us, really disappointed Corey did not ask Aslan to define TV monitor. That's from the Tuesday show. I don't know what that's about. Also, we have Axel Foley, not the actual Axel Foley, but a guy who goes by Axel Foley, which I probably shouldn't read it because you're not even using your real name on Twitter, and then you're coming at me and my guy. Said, why be so critical on the podcast, but not during the actual press conference when Willie is standing 20 feet away? I read that. I don't have a comment on it. Moving on to practice from Tuesday, Corey. Some news and notes. Did you notice anything? Were you knucking? Were you buck on Tuesday? I don't know if I saw you knucking, so I don't think you were bucking.
No, I was doing neither. I was just viewing.
Okay.
As I like to do at 8:45 or 9 o'clock in the morning. It's really fun to go out there.
Yeah.
And do that. Again, folks, understand that in the off season, I'm going to have make some things happen. But the morning practice has got to stop, baby. They got to stop. Tell me when. Hey, Aslan, you covered Alabama for a good while. When do they practice? What time of day?
Oh, like usually after 3 in the afternoon or so.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Like a high school team or every other college team.
Like every amateur football team that's ever been created, pretty much, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So all I'm saying is the only other team I know, and there might be others out there, maybe Oregon stuck with it after Willie left. But the only other team I know that practices in the morning is Miami.
Oh, yeah.
And Miami sucks too.
Yeah.
So, buddy, let's get back to the 3:30 practices. Get their body clocks all timed up. Hey, for all we know, if this team had been practicing at 3:30 every day, they'd be 7-3 right now. We're trying to determine which bowl we're going to go to.
All about them
But
circadian rhythms.
They're all
about those circadian
they're all
rhythms.
bleary-eyed trying to learn complex pass block schemes apparently, and they can't learn it because they're all bleary-eyed and tired because they're teenagers. So, anywho, that's obviously all mostly tongue-in-cheek, although just from a personal standpoint, it would be wonderful if we went back to afternoon practices.
It has
the morning
degraded our
practices
quality.
ain't working.
It has degraded our quality of life, but people don't care about that. So the joke about Corey knucking if he's buck is the fact that they always play knuck if you're buck every single practice when they do the Knoll drill, which a lot of you are pretty much over and has now become a punchline to a lot of folks. But they're still out there competing. Brian Burns performed in the Knoll drill. That has to be the first time I've seen Brian Burns in the Knoll drill since preseason camp. So there's your leaders maybe trying to get involved, get mixed up. A position coach. The video's all on War Chant. You can see it. There was a position coach who got a little flustered with his guys, implored them that this is going to be a big physical week, and if you're not going to bring it, then get off the dang field. One of the defensive leaders said, "I like your juice, coach. I like your juice." So they're out there. They're trying. They're still trying, but they were playing the music. But they're doing it indoors in the indoor practice facility. They're playing the music, and then they went outside to actually practice. And it took the quote DJ, and I don't like calling him a DJ. He's just some student assistant who's got two big speakers and an iPad, and he just plays the music. So they actually got in 4 periods of practice. They got about 20 minutes of work in during the media open portion with no music. So a lot of people got excited about that because they saw the video that I filmed and put on our War Chant YouTube page. By the way, subscribe to that. It's free. It just gives you a friendly reminder whenever we post a video on the YouTube page.
And we post a lot of videos. A lot of good videos.
A lot of good videos. Also, Renegade Express going down later in the week, maybe tomorrow, probably tomorrow. And we'll take your phone calls on Friday, 850-792-5730. So a lot of people got excited about that. But by the time we literally were walking off the field and leaving for the day, the guy had set back up and the music started pumping again as they got into special teams and went through the rest of practice. So what I noticed was Brian Burns is out there performing the Knoll drill. Can't be a bad thing. One of your leaders trying to get involved in it. I did see Xavier Peters in a blue non-contact jersey. I know a lot of people wonder why he hasn't seen the light of day yet. He was a big 4-star recruit, and there hasn't really been any sort of pass rush opposite Brian Burns, and there really hasn't been any pass rush in the last 3 weeks. But he had a blue non-contact jersey on him, so it seems like he's probably working through some injuries, and he did get to campus late. So that's what's going on with him. Otherwise, they're out there. They're trying, guys. They are trying. That's all you can really ask for.
I didn't that. I guess that shows how numb I've gotten to it. I didn't even realize that the music wasn't playing.
It wasn't. It was cool. I don't know, man. There's a certain part of this has got to suck. I don't think you have to be a miserable guy, but I think part of practice has to suck. And I know it sucks when Odell's yelling at you to get low, strain, Coop, strain. That sucks. But just the sound of guys hitting each other, hitting a sled, echoing through a practice field, there's just something about it. I think you need to hear that. That needs to be the soundtrack to you getting better. Not, Ice Trader Gang, mumble rap. But hey, I'm just an old guy.
You are, man. You're grumpy and old.
I'm grumpy as all get out. Also, I went back and looked at this. I've been meaning to do this for a few weeks now. The last time Florida State practiced in full pads was the week of the Miami game. And that's all I got.
I was thinking about that. Not that they hadn't practiced, but knock on wood, they've been what could maybe even be more concerning is they've kind of been lucky injury-wise. They haven't had just crushing season-ending injuries other than Landon Dickerson, which is a big one, obviously. Mm-hmm. You take your best lineman off a bad line, that wasn't great, and Minshew. But like on defense, they haven't had Levante Taylor being out for a couple weeks. I don't know that we think it was a loss, but it wasn't a monumental loss. And there wasn't a season ender. Like, you know what I mean? Like I feel like they've been kind of relatively healthy for a college football team. Yeah, maybe that goes back to the not tackling in practice. But then again, they don't tackle well in games. So maybe that goes back to not tackling in practice either. And again, Jimbo didn't – let's not get it twisted. Jimbo wasn't tackling in practice either. But they were in pads, and they would thud up. I don't know how much difference it makes to wear thigh pads and instead of shorts when you're thudding anyway and you're not bringing them to the ground. I mean, I really don't know. They don't look any less physical than Jimbo's practices did.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just the psychology, man. You got to, to a certain degree, you got to practice how you're going to play. But yeah, I'm not blaming this on the lack of, the fact that I've been wearing hip pads for the last 5 weeks. I don't think
you're blaming it on the music. I feel you. I hear you. I see what you're doing.
I don't know. I mean, again, they're in such a difficult situation because if they are self-assured and believe in their process and their practices and their philosophies, then gosh dang it, you don't change. You trust it, you keep doing it, and then people want them to change stuff, and then when they change and you point it out, you're like, well, hey, this guy's just changing with the wind, just flip-flopping here left and right, just doing whatever he wants to do. He doesn't have a philosophy. He doesn't have a roadmap to success. So it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. But hey, man, when you get $5 million
that's part of the deal when you do this kind of stuff. When you do change uniforms and you do you do things unorthodox, like play music at practice and in preseason have like dance breaks and celebration breaks for big plays. That's not old school football philosophy. And, I don't think it really matters one way or the other, but the optics of it aren't great. And it's something you have to deal with. You have to deal with those bad optics. And there's a risk when you go 4-6. And then you do some things where it makes it look like it doesn't matter to you that you're 4-6, whether it's turnover backpacks or doing wild celebrations in practice or dancing or the swaying on a kickoff. Man, all right, you can do all that stuff, but you just open yourself up to criticism. The one thing you would think about Willie Taggart, the one thing I've gotten to really kind of appreciate over the last 3 months, I don't think he cares a whole lot. He's going to do what he's going to do because he's confident in what he's doing. Is that false confidence? Is that confidence not warranted? We'll find out. But he is confident in who he is as a coach and what he's doing and how he can build programs. So the history will write itself over the next couple years, next 2 or 3 years. But that dude, I think it would be a bad precedent if all of a sudden he did just turn off the music. Like, man, this is what you believe in. This is how you want to run a practice. You want them to have fun at practice. You can't just shut that down. I certainly didn't play sports at this level.
You can after the 6th loss. I think you can after the 6th loss.
No, man, I don't. I don't think that's how you run programs. If you either believe in what you're doing or you don't. And if you're going to we just had a guy leave here that all he did was talk about process and the results take care of themselves. Don't worry about results. Worry about the process. Well, if you get caught up in, that was our 6th loss, so turn it down, turn the music off, then that's not trusting your process. And whether the process works or not, we'll see. It certainly doesn't look like it's going in the right direction, but we'll see. But I don't think you just turn off the process. That's not what these people do. Football coaches can't just willy-nilly say, I'm done with that. I'm the thing I've done for the last 8 years, I'm not doing anymore. The thing I talked about all preseason, it's over because we're losing games. I think you lose, if you're trying to build a culture and then you just kneecap it by saying, well, you're telling everybody on that team, I don't believe in what I'm doing.
And that's not that. I mean, you can still have fun. You can still keep it lighthearted, but maybe stress the fact that these practices need to be the most focused, disciplined, dialed-in practices we've had all year long. And when we get this thing back, we're gonna do it the way that I really want to do it, and we're gonna enjoy the hell out of this. But right now, man, there's a lot of anxiety right now. There's 700 some odd players. I know thousands of players who've played at Florida State before that built this damn thing, and we're gonna blow it here maybe in the next 14 days. So pardon me, I want to try to not be the guy that ruined this. Is everybody on board? I think most of the guys would be. We spoke to most of these kids. They don't want to be. They don't want to be the guy that I was a senior. I was on that team. Yeah, man. When we snapped 30 after 36, 40 years consecutive. I feel like we don't talk about the winning seasons enough. The bowl streak, for some reason, does it just sound sexier? I feel like winning seasons is a lot more.
Yeah, you're right. And that's what are they at now? 40 in a row.
Yeah.
Right. Since 77, right? That's 40 in a row. Yeah, you're right. That's crazy too. They're on. They could very well, unless they somehow win 3 games, they're going to have their first losing season since 1976. That's crazy. Not crazy that it's, I mean, streaks end. But for heaven's sake, 1976, they haven't had a losing season? That's nutty. That's crazy. Crazy, I tell you.
It's just the bizarre thing is that no one will remember it in 5, 10, 15 years. And if it goes down this season, it'll be amongst one of the worst seasons in the ACC in college football that this team couldn't find a way to win 6 games. That's the bizarre thing.
What do you mean by that?
Well, just in terms of the talent out there. I mean, I know people think it's a tough schedule, but like you lost to NC State. NC State's not amazing. You couldn't get past them. You lost to Syracuse. I know Syracuse is ranked high.
Bowl team. Two bowl teams right there, buddy.
Yeah. All right. Otherwise, we spoke to Walt. We spoke to DJ, Alec, and Cam Akers. The players, again, they don't want to be the team that let this thing down. That's really all they've said, that's of substance or of consequence. Walt, meanwhile, pointed to the fact, again, the slow starts are limiting what they can run on offense. It's affecting their game planning, which is kind of bizarre.
Phrase that differently. He was asked about it. He didn't, blame it.
Oh, yeah, no. Okay,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's fair. Yeah, I wasn't trying to do that. Yeah, he was questioned about, and I don't. What was the actual question that elicited that answer?
I just watched. It was another one of Ira's boring-ass questions. No, it was about, what does that do to you as a play caller when you're immediately down in a 14-0, 17-0 hole?
Yeah.
And says that, it goes, it takes you off some of the script that you want to run.
And you can't run the ball anymore.
Facing points. Yeah, you can't run it well, sure.
Makes you one-dimensional. So there's that. He did also, I asked him about the whole, Willie saying that, when you asked, I think, on Monday, Willie, about the running game looking a little bit better, he pointed to the fact that he thinks they simplified some things up front. And my whole thing is, at what point did you see anything that made you think this team could do anything beyond a JV level of blocking schemes, pretty much, without being that big of a jerk? Shout out to Axel Foley. And, he said that, wait a minute, we're probably been accused of being way too simple. But he said that it got to a point where, like last week, they just focused on 2 or 3 schemes, like 2 or 3 looks that they were going to probably get from Notre Dame, and just that's what they were going to focus in on. I mean, that's Notre Dame. They might be, I don't know, they're a little more talented, I think, than Boston College up front. So maybe that can be something to hang on to. Maybe they can focus on just 2 or 3 looks they'll get from Boston College, and if they can hit enough, on the plays where BC's in fronts and looks and packages that they are expecting, they don't have to execute perfectly, man. But maybe in those situations where they know they're going to get it a couple times every down, or not every down, but every sequence where they have the ball, they'll get 1 or 2 of those. If they can just capitalize on those, maybe get ahead, maybe they can hang on for dear life and get out of this thing with a win on Saturday.
Maybe so, buddy.
Okay, I tried. I got nothing else. You got anything, Corey?
We're trying, aren't we, buddy? We're trying our best.
Yeah.
It's, again, people, who's ever been through a season like this? Nobody listened to this show. I get that Florida State was terrible in the early to mid 70s, but Florida State didn't have a history and tradition back then. Nobody thought, man, this is crazy. How did this happen? How did Florida State get here? I think everybody's like, well, all right, sure. Florida State's 0-11 or 3-8. It's just you
They're
grow
3
up.
and
You're
6.
literally,
They were 3 and 6 last year, Corey. They were 3 and 6 last year, and they played an easier schedule, and they were 3 and 6. So we are better than we were last year.
Well, who said that?
Oh. Do you read the website for which you provide fantastic content for? Do you read?
No, I read the stuff that we write. I don't get on the tribal council that much and read that kind of stuff.
Get on
because I think that kind of stuff is as dumb as Willie Taggart's a horrible hire, needs to be fired right now.
It's out there.
I get that you can have that opinion, but it's not an informed opinion because it's a small sample size. It just is.
Yeah.
Again, I promise you, most of the people that are saying that, or at least a portion of the people, I don't know what the Venn diagram is, the people that are saying that were probably saying very similar things after Jimbo lost a Wake in 2011. I mean, and he was whatever he was, 10-7 against Power 5 teams, and had just lost on the third straight loss at Wake Forest. Let's see. Obviously, nobody can look at what we're looking at and go, man, this thing's, I like what he's doing here. I see what he's doing there. That makes sense. Yep. Got that position playing well. We've talked about it. It's awful across the board. Coaching has exacerbated the problem, in my opinion, not calmed anything. But we'll see what 19 looks like, baby. There is a chance somewhere in those stars, in the heavens, in the clouds, that the universe gets itself in a nice little rhythm, and somehow, some way, it spins itself where Florida State can win 8 or 9 games next year. Then won't we be dancing, dancing around campfires and kissing babies?
Knucking, being buck and just knucking.
We'll knuck and buck. We'll do all of the knucking and bucking and some other ucking. We'll just be so excited with everything. We're covering an 8 or 9 win team again. Again, he's done it before. And if you look at how his team looked in South Florida.
He's pulled Fiats out of ditches, Corey. He's never pulled a Peterbilt semi-trailer out of a ditch. He's pulled a Fiat out of a ditch.
Well, right, sure. But wouldn't it be easier because he's never had as much, to keep that metaphor going, he's never had the type of bulldozers. Is that what you'd use to pull something out of a ditch, right?
Wrecker,
a bulldozer or a
backhoe
crane?
or a wrecker, like a tow truck?
Yeah. He's never had an army of wreckers and cranes like he has at Florida State. It's easier to turn it around in a place like Florida State. It is. Of course, Jimbo did it in 2 years. You can do it. It's easier to recruit here than it is at South Florida. You're selling something. So you're selling tradition, history, that stadium. He's got a lot of things working for him. What's not working for him is 59-10 and 42-13 on national television, being down by 28 to average ass NC State. Like, that's the stuff he has to combat. But if you can turn it around at South Florida, you can turn it around at Western Kentucky, you can turn it around at Florida State. It does not mean you will, but you can. And so it's just right now, it's the worst team I've ever watched. Literally, I just read. Y'all heard those numbers. But what if they, Aslan, just let yourself daydream for a second. What if my man Ricky Aguayo bombs a 51-yard field goal to beat Boston College 28-27 or 27-26 on Saturday? What are you thinking about old Willie T then, my man?
Coach of the Year, Bobby Dodd finalist.
I'm saying 5-6, and he beat a team that Jimbo lost to by 32. So, and if that happens, then you got a little momentum going into that rivalry game. And it's a rival that starts Felipe Franks at quarterback. So all of a sudden, you're feeling a little bit better. And what would you say then, my man, if my man DeAndre Francois throws for 3 bills and 4 scores and you beat the Gators 31-30 to get bowl eligible?
Davey O'Brien finalist.
Sure. I don't know if you could be a finalist after not being a semifinalist, but that's how good Francois is going to be these next 2 weeks. Yeah. He's going to will himself into the Heisman race.
Do you have any cool stories about Boston College so we can go out on a high note, make people smile? Any cool Boston College stories, Corey?
No. I think I watched live when Doug Flutie threw the Hail Mary to beat Miami. I think I would have been 9 at the time. I think I was on my couch watching the end of that game.
You know what's crazy? I like to think of myself as knowing a lot about college football, not nearly as much as you do, but more than the average bear, less than the coracle.
Right.
Never at any point in my life, it's not like I forgot it. I don't know who he threw the touchdown to. I know it was Doug Flutie. I know it was against Miami. I have no idea who caught the ball.
Gerald Phelan caught it.
Shouldn't he get some credit? He gets no credit. It's all Flutie.
Oh, it's crazy. Well, I think what's crazy about it is Flutie was awesome. I mean, it was nuts. He was Johnny Manziel just running around like a crazy person. I think that he threw for like 400
more like Fran Tarkenton. I like to compare Flutie more to Fran Tarkenton than Manziel, but okay.
Oh, okay. All right. But another like scrambly white guy?
Yeah.
Okay. I see what you're doing there. Okay. Maybe a little Mayfield in him too.
All right.
But he was awesome in that game. But Melvin, I think they just couldn't stop Miami because they didn't have a defense. So, like, Melvin Bratton scored 4 or 5 touchdowns. One of the Miami running backs did. What's crazy about that is I had a buddy who was a student at Miami that year. So, Miami lost, that was the year after they won the national championship in '83, and Bernie Kosar was still the quarterback. They lost to Maryland that season when they had the 31-0 lead at halftime.
Yeah. Frank Reich, baby.
And Frank Reich led the comeback. That was 1984. The Doug Flutie game was 1984. and I think they lost to Michigan in a bowl game, and like this, or they lost to Michigan somehow in a crazy like final play type game too. And then and Florida State beat them 38-3, back when Florida State would score 38 points. So yeah, I thought that was odd that Miami. What a weird year for Miami, and then the next what would we say, the next 15 years they were pretty darn good. But for Boston, yeah, Gerald Phelan caught it. But you're right. I guess the thing is it wasn't tipped in the air. It was a weird Hail Mary that went over everybody. So he just laid on the ground and caught it. Like it wasn't like one of the Aaron Rodgers. Well, I guess the his guy kind of catches it too. But usually you think of a Hail Mary being tipped in the end zone, like the Cordell Stewart one.
Right.
But that one was just he threw it really far and he threw it over all the defensive backs' heads.
Yeah. I went up in 2005. And it was several of us. There was only, I think, it was 3 of us who had gone to the Notre Dame game 2 years prior. We flew up to Baltimore because my best friend lived in Baltimore at the time, and then we rented a minivan, and we drove up. We went to the power plant. Have you ever partied in Baltimore? It's like on the water, the power plant. It was a nice little place. I liked it.
Not in that section of Baltimore. I used to power with my guy Marlowe. I had a dude, a high school buddy of mine that was a businessman, like an entrepreneur up there in Baltimore, 2005, 2006-ish. And I'd go hang with him and his boy. Hey, Chris was a really cool kid. Yeah. But Chris and Marlo, little girl named Snoop, I never really got a great vibe from her. Like a little off, a little menacing, especially for kind of a small woman. But otherwise, yeah, man, great times in Baltimore. Just never made it to the power plant.
Yeah. So we flew up. One of my buddies, his brother drove us to the airport, and we like polished off like an 18-pack of beers on the way to the airport. And then on the flight up to Baltimore, I think we were limited to only 1 drink per person, so we would just order 1 round. Like I could only order like 1 round the entire trip. So like I ordered 3 for us, and then my next buddy ordered 3. So like went through like 3 whiskey and colas on the plane ride from Tampa to Baltimore. And then like I'd never been in an airport where the rental car kiosk was off-site. So I'm already drunk, and like the rental car is in my name, and I'm like, we got to find the rental car. And like, oh, the sign says we have to go outside and get on a bus. I'm like, that is ridiculous. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. It has to be somewhere here. So like I'm sending all the guys on a goose chase for the airport. Like, Aslan, we're going. You're stupid, dude. We have to leave the grounds to go get a rental car. And I finally kind of like acquiesced to them, and they're like giggling at me the whole time. And I have no idea why they're giggling at me. Turns out one of them found an unused tampon on the ground and put it on my backpack. So like I'm drunk and yelling in the Baltimore airport with a tampon stuck to my backpack. There's like many heckling they did to me that day. So we finally get on the bus. We go to my buddy's house in Baltimore.
I'm glad that you specified that it was unused.
Well, of course.
Anyway, go ahead.
My friends aren't terrible human beings.
No, where would they even find a used one?
Yeah.
But anyway, go ahead.
So then we go to my buddy's place in Baltimore, and then we're like, all right, let's go grab some food. Then we'll go out to downtown or whatever that power plant was. We ended up going to a TGI Fridays, and they had some sort of special where it was like 3 things for $15, appetizer, entree, and a dessert. And I was still so drunk. We kept drinking the whole time, drank at the restaurant. And I barely ate my food because it wasn't that good, but I was so looking forward to my cheesecake. Nobody else got any dessert. Everybody just got an entree or an appetizer. I got the whole appetizer, entree, cheesecake thing. I end up passing out at the table. I finally wake up, and one of them ate my cheesecake. And all I wanted was some damn cheesecake that night, and they ruined it for me. But anyhow, so we drive up the next day. Nothing crazy happens on the way up there. We stay with a buddy of mine who's actually a Florida fan. We went to Florida. He's a good guy, though. His late father, who's an amazing man, used to work for a liquor distributor. So he got him a job up there working for like a liquor distributor. And he had this bar, and he lived in Chestnut Hill. We walked from his house to Alumni Stadium. And he had this wall just filled with all flavors of Grey Goose vodka. And, man, we went through all of it. It was an amazing time. It was really good. It was a good time. But I always remember we won the game, the Florida State game, and it was the first ACC game for Boston College. And I remember out front the stadium, I was so drunk, I started ripping up clods of dirt and grass from outside the stadium. And I walked the entire way from the stadium back to my buddy's house with just sod in my hand up in the air, just yelling, "Sod game! sod game. We just took your grass. I have your grass. And then we went to some weird party later that night.
Every time you tell a story about going on a road trip, I think people are like, oh, man, no. Like, it's like the ugly American that they have that concept in Europe. I feel like all around the ACC, there's the ugly FSU fan, and you're like the spokesman.
It was a sod game, Corey.
Well, I know, I get it. Obnoxious, drunk, ripping up their turf to yell at them. And it's Boston College. It ain't like you beat them in hockey. So nobody there even really cares that they lost to Florida State. They're just happy to be in the ACC, and you're taunting them.
I'm just letting them know what it's going to be like. This is what you signed up for.
Right.
So anyhow, later in that night, we ended up going to some house party that my buddy who lived up there knew about, and there was some sort of weird, like, pork casserole dish, and I'm like, I'm not touching that because I don't eat swine. And then everybody eats that night because they're all drunk and hungry, but I just go to bed hungry and drunk, but they go to bed filled up and drunk. So then we're driving back. We got a late start leaving Boston. So we actually, some of us flew out of Boston. I was cheap and flew out of Baltimore. And we were running so late because we kept having to pull over because everybody kept puking out the window because they all got sick from eating that dish at that girl's house that we were at. And I'm just like, you guys are the worst, man. I'm like, I told you not to eat that stuff. But anyways, we're running so late to the airport that my buddy who lived in Baltimore, we're like, we don't have enough time to drop you off at your house and then get to the airport in time. And he's like, all right, just drop me off the interstate. So we pull off the interstate and we go to a gas station and we just drop him off at a gas station. And he befriends some old man, and the old man drives him home to his apartment. And we got there just in the nick of time. I almost got tased by the TSA agent because, or not the TSA agent, but the booking gate, the lady at the check-in, because she was like, "Oh, we're not taking bags anymore. It's less than 30 minutes until departure." And I was just like, "It's 29 minutes." I'm like, "Can you just help me out? It's 1 minute." She didn't appreciate that, but she eventually was nice enough and was the bigger person in the argument, and we made it home safely. That was it.
Good job, buddy. Yeah. Another trip down memory lane.
Yeah.
I guess next year, if we have a lot more of this to deal with, at least once a week we'll do like our own trips down memory lanes with the opponents instead of actually talking about Florida State losing by 20 points again.
Okay.
We can just do old trips about games that they won.
Yeah.
That's true. You're 2 for 2 in games that you won.
Boom.
Road trips. So yeah, let's keep that going.
Yep. All right, folks. Catch us tomorrow. We'll take your questions. Hop on over to the Tribal Council on warchant.com. Use the promo code WARCHANT30 for a 30-day free trial. Also, give us your calls, 850-792-5730. He's Corey. I'm Aslan. Thanks for listening. Talk to you tomorrow.
WarChant.com is the ultimate inside source for FSU football and recruiting. And now you can get in on the action for free for an entire month. WarChant.com is offering a risk-free 30-day trial subscription. Get full access to the #1 website covering the Seminoles just by entering the promo code WARCHANT30. That's WARCHANT30. Sign up and get in on the world's most active FSU message boards. Receive breaking news, stories from our award-winning staff, plus get exclusive interviews and videos. Just enter the promo code WARCHANT30. WarChant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source.